leader's ability to focus and execute is never more important than in times of extreme uncertainty. And it's never more difficult than in those times. As change and uncertainty increase, complexity inevitably increases as well. And execution does not like complexity. The two best friends of execution are simplicity and transparency. As complexity increases, it becomes more and more difficult to maintain focus. And when it comes to this issue, of the 3,000 leaders that we have worked with, all of them all seem to know the same two things. First, everyone knows we have got to narrow our focus. We hear it all the time. We have got to prioritize it. Everybody says this, everybody knows it. And the second thing that everyone seems to know is that I have 20 things right now that need my immediate attention. These two things feel true all the time, and they don't get along. And everybody knows that feeling. I'm missing a critical deadline. The two new faculty members that were supposed to be hired for me last month are still in the interview process. I have an accreditation site meeting next week that I don't feel ready for. I have to give an update at the end of the day on the new university initiative. And in the middle of all of this, what I really know is that the one thing that would actually have the biggest impact on my department isn't getting any of my attention right now. And if it's not getting any of my attention, it's probably not getting anyone else's either. This dynamic exists in normal times. In times of crisis or extreme change, it can become overwhelming. However, if you can view your plan through the lens of how it will actually be executed, you can start to remove a lot of unnecessary complexity. Do this. Think about all of the major aspects of your current plan or strategy. And what I want you to do is divide these elements into 3 columns. By the way, the framework I'm showing you right now, we've used with over 1,500 different organizations. Usually takes a leader about 20 minutes, and an entire leadership team can actually do this in under an hour. Okay, the first category or column that I want you to start sorting these elements into, we call stroke of the pen. These are the elements that require either money or leadership authority in order to happen. For instance, we're going to hire a new faculty member. We're going to change some of the course curriculum. We're going to establish a community partnership. We're going to develop an online platform. We're going to green light the construction of a new facility. These things tend to have a big impact. There are also things that we have a fair amount of control over. These are things that are going to happen. The next category is life support. Think day job. This contains all of the critical standards and metrics that must be sustained in order to maintain the institution. For instance, your enrollment numbers, transfer rate, job placement percentage, fall-to-fall persistence. These metrics are maintained by your existing processes, systems, structures, and a lot of extra work and a great deal of firefighting. In the 4 disciplines of execution, we refer to this work as the whirlwind, right? This is everything required to keep things going. The middle category is where you need a breakthrough. This is something that you believe is of vital importance, but is also at great risk of not being achieved. The breakthrough, what we refer to as a wildly important goal or WIG in the 4 disciplines of execution, will usually come from one of the other 2 columns, but cannot be achieved in those columns. The breakthrough cannot be achieved with the stroke of a pen. You can't buy this. If you could, you probably would. You can't mandate this result. This is also something that can't be achieved with your existing process, or at least you don't believe that it will be achieved with the work that you're currently doing right now. This won't happen unless the organization, the faculty, begins behaving differently. These almost always require a change in people's behavior and habits, and usually a high degree of human engagement. To identify this breakthrough, start by asking yourself this question. In your mind, what is living at the corner of really important, like we can't go another 9 months with this result? And if I'm honest with myself, I don't think this is going to happen. Not unless we start doing some things very differently. Keep in mind that this breakthrough is not always the most important objective. Stay with me. This throws people. It's the most important objective that's not going to happen unless something seriously changes. For instance, in the airline industry, the most important objective will always be safety. But they're really good at that. They're already doing it. You don't want them to do anything different. Also, The center column is a little more resistant to direct leadership influence. It usually requires more commitment rather than just compliance, more pull rather than just push. The columns on either side, stroke of the pen, life support. As a leader, we tend to have a fair amount of control over those things. And to be honest, compliance works pretty good a lot of the times on the wings. Your breakthrough is something that will require the hearts and minds of your team, of your faculty, of the organization. You can think of each of these columns as requiring a different execution treatment. One of the things that we started to realize is that leaders can actually be very good in one of these columns and struggle in another one of them. Now, the greatest frustration and the most complexity is experienced in the conflict between the breakthrough and the life support columns. These efforts do not get along. They compete for time, energy, and attention, and life support tends to dominate. When people are dealing with something like a global crisis, like we are now, there's a strong tendency for them to split their energy between two things. First, spending a lot of time, a lot of energy focusing and conjecturing about things over which we have no control whatsoever. And the second is bouncing back to maintaining the day job or life support, in a sense, playing defense. And ironically, during these times when it's often most essential to put energy against a breakthrough, it's really difficult to get that energy. Here is the critical, brutal insight that we believe is absolutely necessary to keep from drowning in complexity. Life support is going to eat up 80% of your organization's energy before you get any traction on a breakthrough requiring a change in people's behavior. It doesn't matter how brilliant or how compelling or how necessary the breakthrough strategy is. In the moment, it will never feel as urgent as the day job. And no leader gets a pass on this. No one gets to, in a sense, paint on a blank canvas. 80% of that canvas has already been painted on. Quite possibly, the most important strategic question that any leader answers is, how will I spend that 20% that I can steal from life support? It doesn't take long to realize that if you choose to spread that 20% out across too many initiatives, too many breakthroughs at the same time, the complexity becomes unmanageable and you paralyze the organization. The 4 disciplines of execution is nothing more or less than a process for applying that sacred 20% of your energy towards executing on your breakthrough objectives. This framework is used by leaders and by leadership teams as a way to start talking about and thinking about executing on your most critical goals while staying out of the complexity trap.